So there's plenty more to talk about in the ongoing Kavanaugh situation. But what I wanted to focus on this video is the Democrats and the media claim that they're the party of women and that they take sexual assault victims serious and the Me Too movement and all that stuff. But let's see how this situation shows they really treat women and they really treat alleged victims of sexual assault. The first issue that's worth talking about this is Christine Blasey Ford, who was the original accuser, and how Dianne Feinstein sat on her allegation for 6 to 7 weeks. Now, allegedly, this is what happened. Ford got in contact with some people. Her beach friend, who was someone who formerly worked at the FBI, told her to contact lawyers to get this information to Dianne Feinstein. But she said she didn't want it to be made public. She didn't want her name to be out in the public. So despite this, Feinstein then has 7 weeks where she could have gave this information discreetly to the rest of the people on the committee and to the FBI and have them investigate. They would have 7 weeks to do it. It wouldn't have been a big media story. There wouldn't have been all this pressure put on Ford. Remember, the Democrats say, oh, her life was turned upside down. It'll never be the same because this was made public and it was such a difficult thing to do. All of that could have been avoided and there could have been a real investigation had Feinstein actually cared about an alleged sexual assault victim. She did not. More than she cared about this, she cared about weaponizing the allegation to do as much harm as possible to Brett Kavanaugh. So you have to understand the situation at the time. Kavanaugh was going to be confirmed overwhelmingly because the Republicans had the numbers and he's a good justice. And even if I don't like some of the things he might have ruled on, he was qualified and he would have been confirmed. So Feinstein knew that she needed some sort of Hail Mary pass. So they went through the entire confirmation hearing for 7 weeks. She sat on this allegation and then at the 0 hour released it to the public, knowing that she was going against the alleged sexual assault victim's wishes by making her name public and making all this information public. So if you're someone who feels truly bad about Christine Blasey Ford and all this being drug out in the public and how it ruined her life, like all these Democrats and their supporters claim they are, you have no one to blame but Dianne Feinstein. She's the one who said, I don't care about an alleged sexual assault victim's wishes. I don't care if she doesn't want to be made public. I'm going to make it public because it helps me politically. And she also didn't care about getting to the truth of the accusation. You hear all these Democrats say, we needed a longer investigation, a longer investigation. Well, the reason they waited till the last minute was, one, because they wanted the information to be made public so that they could put pressure on Kavanaugh and smear him in the public sphere with their media allies, because we don't have a free press. The mainstream media is 95% just a mouthpiece for the Democrats. And so they wanted to weaponize that and go after Kavanaugh to make him look like a monster. Never mind that it would ruin his life. Never mind that his children would have to hear absurd claims like Avenatti's client saying that he gang raped people. They didn't care because it helped them politically. But even if you don't care about Kavanaugh, because most of these Democrats don't, and they don't care that they're trying to ruin his life, he deserves it because he was appointed by Trump and he's Republican, and he might overturn Roe v. Wade. Killing babies is more important than being ethical and not making up allegations to destroy a man's life. Even if you don't care about him, though, think of what you did to Blasey Ford. You outed her. You didn't allow the FBI to have this time to be able to do an investigation behind the scenes and be able to confirm or deny her story. But they didn't care about any of that. They didn't care at all. And so what we ended up having was they were trying to run out the clock because they thought if they did this at the 0 hour and then claimed, now we want like an 8-week investigation. And don't be fooled. There could have been a 10-year investigation into Kavanaugh, and Democrats would say, it's not enough. It's not enough. There's still people that need to be interviewed. People need to be. That's what they would have said. So they waited to the last minute, and their idea was if they could run it out until after the 2018 elections, maybe they would get enough seats in the Senate where they would then be able to stop Kavanaugh's confirmation. That's what this was all about. So all the Democrats they know there is no defense what Feinstein did. They don't want to talk about it. There is no defense. None. They belittled, smeared, and took advantage of an alleged sexual assault victim because they wanted to play politics. That's what they did. They outed her against her wish. They sat in the allegation for 7 weeks and now when you hear them saying, but we wanted a longer investigation. We need to impeach Kavanaugh and go back and have the FBI investigate. They did that on purpose. They had the chance to do that, but they chose to sit on it. And now they just say, well, so what, Feinstein did that, but we still need a long investigation. Ridiculous. And I'll do a video on just why these claims, what were you going to investigate? Even the victim in the newest story says she wasn't a victim. Which leads me to that transition. So you might be saying, oh, okay, that's one alleged sexual assault victim that they kind of treated poorly. But that's it, right? No, try again. And it's not just these Democratic politicians, it's the media as well. They're the champions of truth. They're the champions of women, right? Oh, they're great moral people. You're a terrible person if you don't think Kavanaugh's a rapist like them. That's why they have to lie and smear and do things like the New York Times did. So remember, the New York Times releases a story where a former Clinton attorney, Steyer, says, I was at a party once and I saw some people grab Brett Kavanaugh's penis and shove it into a woman's hand. Now, remember, they initially printed this story. We now know that they actually originally had in, by the way, the victim has no memory of this and hasn't gone on record. Her friends say she has no memory of this occurring. So in other words, the victim says she's not a victim, it didn't happen, or she has no memory of it happening. And but they had that in, and then they intentionally took it out. And their claim was because we at the New York Times didn't want to put that woman's name out there. Okay, sounds noble, right? Only, it turns out that the authors of the book, and that's why the New York Times put this scurrilous story out there, trying to sell books and smear Kavanaugh again, the authors in the book do include the lady's name. So now they're dragging some woman that's 30 years since she's been in college. Apparently she doesn't want to be interviewed. She doesn't want to talk about this. And her friends are saying she has no knowledge of the incident. Now she's going to be drugged in the public spotlight and go through the exact same thing that all the other people involved in this will. Is that fair to this woman? She doesn't even say she's a victim. Yet she's going to be the central figure again in a political game from the Democrats, trying to use her as a political pawn. They claim she's an alleged sexual assault victim. So why would they do that? Why would they out her name publicly? What does having her name out there when she's saying has not interviewed or anything, what does that benefit anyone? It doesn't. But the New York Times, these authors, they don't care. All these journalists, they don't care. She's just a tool. She is to be used and discarded. She's only a tool to go after the Republicans. Remember, they didn't give this treatment to the supposed victims of Bob Menendez or Justin Fairfax or Keith Ellison, right? Do you remember them having these scathing reports about those Democrats that allegedly abused women or sexually assaulted women or underagers? No, of course not. But in this situation, this woman needs to be outed, so who cares what her wishes are? But it's worse than that, because now the authors of this piece have given interviews that said, well, you know, maybe the reason that she doesn't remember is she was just too drunk. Now remember, this was an allegation they tried to pin on Kavanaugh during the confirmation hearing, because the implication is if Kavanaugh was blackout drunk before, that must mean he could be a rapist. So it's a very bad trait. It's saying you can't handle your alcohol. You have a problem. You have a substance abuse problem. It's a bad thing. It's something to smear someone with. Yet they have no problem, this alleged sexual assault victim, who probably didn't want to be named, didn't want to give interviews. They name her and they say she's a drunk. She didn't remember. It couldn't be that their witness, that they only have one witness of this, made up the story or was incorrect about it. Nope, it can't be that. It must be the victim's wrong. There's something wrong with the victim. Yep, she must have been drunk. What happened to the party with all these people that care about women and sexual assault survivors? And let me tell you the next woman that's going to be maligned, who's already been maligned. So Christine Blasey Ford's star witness, right? Of course, she names like 3 people that were at this party where she was sexually assaulted. Of course, the people that are Kavanaugh's friends are unlikely to confirm her story. But her best friend would have no incentive if this was true to not do so. Yet we now know that Leland Kaiser, her friend and witness, says not only does she not remember the incidents, but she doubts Ford's character and the story. It just couldn't be true. It wouldn't have happened. That's her own witness, her own friend. We now know, which was the real bombshell from the New York Times story, as I did a video on this, that actually she was attacked by friends of Ford who threatened her if she didn't change her story. They were going to smear her name in the public, just like they're going to do with this new victim. Boy, they really care about women, right? Is that the big story today? Imagine if this was the other way around. Imagine if Bill Clinton, I saw someone say that, I think I saw Shapiro say this, but it's true. Imagine if Bill Clinton, during his scandals, there was a woman that Paula Jones or one of the other women said, hey, here's my best friend that was there when this incident happened. She'll back me up. And that best friend later came out and said, Republican friends of Paula Jones threatened to attack me if I didn't change my story. I don't believe what Paula Jones is saying at all. It'd be #1 front page news all over the country if that happened to a Democrat. But when it's a woman being threatened because she wouldn't smear a Republican, no story. CBS did a little story on it. The rest of the media is totally ignoring that. By the way, that's a crime. They tried to blackmail her in a federal investigation. Tried to blackmail her. Yep, no big story. One of them might have been the beach friend, what's her name, McLean or McClure, who was a former FBI agent. It was said, I think Graham said that she was being looked at into possible witness tampering. So we'll see if anything comes. That was last year. We'll see if anything comes of that. But nonetheless, this woman, Leland Kaiser, was actually attacked. And mark my words, she's going to be attacked even more by people on Twitter, people in the media sphere, and just followers of the Democrats. Maybe even some Democratic politicians. You already start to see it coming. I saw Stephen Miller on one of his tweets linked to a blue checkmark person that was putting an excerpt from the book where Kaiser says something to the effect after she's saying, like, look, this just wouldn't happen. I have problems with this story. I don't believe it occurred. She goes on to say, I was a Democrat. I was married to Bob Beckel, so it's a really strange place for me. And Kavanaugh was this, like, good guy, this powerful guy who seemed to do all these good things as a judge, so you just don't mess with that. And people were saying, oops, sorry, that the lights went out, no big deal. People were saying, well, that somehow proves that, see, she's biased, she's terrible, she's making it up, she's lying. That's what they're saying right now on the Twitter feed. Mark my word, she's going to get more of that. These are the people who support women. So they didn't care about Blasey Ford. They went against her wishes. They held on to the allegation, try to use it, weaponize it, and then they pretend, oh, we actually wanted a long investigation. I mean, we had 8 weeks to investigate, but we didn't. And we could have done it anonymously, but that wouldn't benefit us. We wanted it to be in the public sphere. We have the second victim who is named in the New York Times book, even though the authors of the New York Times, 2 of the authors in their book, even though the Times themselves said we couldn't put the important fact that she doesn't view herself as a victim, we couldn't put that because we didn't want to name her. So they acknowledge that naming her is somehow a bad thing. Yet they do in the book. And then they call her a drunken smear. We see that Leland Kaiser was attacked. This is the party of women. This is the party of wanting to support sexual assault survivors. It is absolute insanity. So remember that. The next time that you see these people say, oh, the Republicans don't care about women. Democrats, that's the party of women. They take sexual assault seriously. No, they don't. We already went through the list of Menendez, Fairfax, Aldi Ellison. They don't care about those alleged victims. They just only care about the victims when they could use it politically. They've treated these alleged victims like crap. They've treated witnesses like crap that happen to be women, and they don't care. It should be the #1 story right now in the United States on all the media outlets that the star witness in one of the biggest confirmation hearings of all time actually came out and said, yeah, I was threatened by people to be able to change my story. So, all right, everyone, my lights are going out. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to me. Follow me on BitChute at Robert Knorr and at Twitter at Knorr Robert at Twitter. And look for me to be putting out more videos soon. So thanks, everyone. Have a good one.